wrong. You're not wrong. There is a negative grift going on with DC, and I'm sick of it. I personally am sick of it. Look, I'm going to say this, and whether you stick with being a fan of mine or not, that's your prerogative. But I was a Snyder fan. I was part of the release the Snyder Cut movement. I was part of the restore the Snyderverse movement. I was a Snyder fan. I wanted to see this work. I wanted to see it completed. I wanted to see it released. And honestly, when we got the Snyder Cut, even prior to that, I started to see this shift within that fandom. But I stayed true. I stayed strong with, like, I want to see Snyder's vision. But as the time went on, I even, I on my other podcast, on my other channel that I ran and have run, I held AFSP events. I tried to raise money and try to get people to get excited about the idea. But eventually I started to see the fandom just turn so toxic with the Snyderverse. And I backed away. Now, I did create the hashtag. I won't say I created, I'm sure somebody else created, but I created a Twitter account. I created other things, animate the Snyderverse. I started pushing animate the Snyderverse because I really thought, like, look, if that is the best way to get the remaining story for Zack Snyder is animate the Snyderverse, because live action is just not going to happen. But the Snyder fans started pushing back and getting mad at me, like, how could you? How dare you? I'm like, let's think of this logically, people. Like, this is the best way to do it. At least we get something. Never. No, that is terrible. That's stupid. So, like, they even attack their own. And it's just started to get to me. So I kind of left the fandom and I started to sit back. But even as part of the fandom, I was like, look, I'm a DC fan. I'm not a Snyder DC fan. I'm a fan of DC. My first film that I ever saw in the theater was Batman 1989. I'm a fan of Batman. I used to sit on my dad's lap watching reruns of 1966 Batman, Adam West Batman. I loved the Batman movies growing up. Superman, I loved Superman. I watched Smallville. I watched the Arrowverse. I am a DC fan. I'm not a Zack Snyder DC fan. I like Snyder's movies, but that's not the be all end all to DC. There's so much more to it than that. And I understand James Gunn coming in, it's a change. It's a change of pace. But I'm hopeful that it's going to become what it should be. And that was kind of the whole idea behind what I've always stated, whether it was part of the Snyderverse movement or outside of it. And that's how I think all DC fans should be. So seeing videos and seeing people like Aaron Fisher constantly rag on DC and Warner Brothers just because it's not the Snyderverse, it kind of upsets me. It's kind of like, why? Like, what's the point of that? Because we're not going to get the Snyderverse. Like, you need to let that go at some point. You don't need to be excited about what James Gunn is doing, but be hopeful. Be hopeful that it's going to turn out to be good. Be hopeful that DC will become the franchise that it's always been able and capable of becoming. You don't need to be excited, but be hopeful. And I've been pushing that for a couple years now. And Aaron Fisher is just one of many who sits out there and just spews toxicity towards James Gunn, towards Warner Brothers. And it's pathetic. That's all it is. It's just pathetic.